Happy Tuesday to you, folks. It's Joe. It's June 6th. Let's get into a market roundup for today. As it's seeing a little bit of a pattern over the last few sessions, I'll include Friday into it, going into Monday into Tuesday. The markets seem to be leveling off, at least the large cap, the big tech. What has been charging over the last couple of weeks seems to be slowing. Now, that's not true across the board. Take a look at how we finished. The Dow, the S&P, the NASDAQ, all flat for the session. We do know. The SPY is actually showing a little bit more strength in some of its sectors. We'll get there in a second. But take a look at the Russells here, 2.5%. There is buying. There's a lot of buying going on. It just isn't in what we have been seeing for a while in some of those big dogs that really raise the markets quickly with those high percentage returns, right? Oil dropped, and gold is pretty much flat. Oil dropped considerably over the last little bit. I think we're around $71 a barrel here. It's been a little bit volatile as of late. Let's get into our daily news. All I got here is this: the SEC charges Coinbase today after Binance yesterday. Looks like the United States is clamping down on this crypto stuff, right? Well, I'm just kidding. I don't know how they look at it. It didn't seem to have too big of an impact as Bitcoin rallied up all the way up to pre-sanction levels. What I mean by that is it really fell out of bed. It really fell hard when Binance was hit with some sanctions. I think 13 of them. And then today went to Coinbase. Looks like the SEC is on a little bit of a tear. Who knows where they'll go next. But it seemed to shake it off because this is specific to the U.S. We'll see where that goes. Maybe they uncover something. Maybe it gets worse. But it didn't really impact the overall markets at all. This is kind of separate. The Qs appear to be slowing over the last few sessions. You guys can see this. We'll get to the chart here in a second. These are definitely signs of topping. I put it down as a question mark, but it is definitely a sign of topping. It doesn't mean it has to catastrophically fall, but at least that surge is slowing down and how far away we are from the moving averages it needed to. That's in my opinion. Advanced decline line, check it out, folks. 76% advancing, 21% declining. 76 stocks advancing, and we're flat. We're at 0.03 on the Dow and 0.24 on the S&P. This just shows you that it was the smaller caps, the mid caps, the things that have been shooting. I mean, look at the Russell, 2.63% today. That was the big driver to the markets themselves. A lot of my bears also, folks, if you get into some of those bearish charts, the last 3 days have gapped up, have done something outside of what I've seen in some of those beautiful bearish trends and some of the bears that I've been trading over the last few weeks. So it is kind of an anomaly. It's a little bit of a, kind of a magnet. The Qs have been going up. It's grabbed some of those lower stuff. It's pulled them higher, things of that nature. So we'll see how long that lasts. Let's continue on real quick while we're here with the SPY chart. Now, the SPY chart is showing something that I thought over the last little bit is a lot more tradable of an uptrend. It does have this ascending triangle pattern. It did confirm, and it is staying up here. So you'll see that I do have an outlook of a very positive, a +2 on this in the monthly outlook. But since it's overextended, I truly think that this is just participating or a little bit subjected to that magnet, the Qs just pulling everything up regardless of what it is. We'll get to the heat map in a minute because pretty good action today in the SPY, particularly the financial sector. The Qs themselves, just super overextended. We really can't, I mean, once you start to see these lines slope up past a 45-degree angle, you know that you've got some pretty tricky going price action. We're seeing a slowdown in the volume. Now, that doesn't mean it's blown off. Usually with capitulation, you'll get huge volume here. Now, that can also happen. A volume bar like this can happen on a big down day. So the capitulation doesn't need to be in the form of something like this, like a blow-off top. It usually is. But it can happen, creating a domino effect if you get a gap or some bad news. Usually it's associated with it. I like how Corey mentioned this yesterday, and I agree with it. This is the beginning of the run. It started off with some good volume. The end of the run looks like it's tapering off. So right now, it's topping. It's not capitulating. It's not a blow-off top yet. It's creating the blow-off top. I'll say it like I did last week. We're watching the volcano is still erupting. We're watching it erupt. So be leery or be weary of that. Don't try to short it just yet, right, folks? I don't want you guys doing counter trend stuff. What I noticed, take a look at this, guys. Hey, 76% of stocks went higher today. It wasn't Microsoft and it wasn't Apple. It was some of your smaller ones, as I circled some larger ones. Sorry, folks, but there are some mid caps in here that did pretty decent. Actually, none of these are really mid caps, but point I'm trying to make, it wasn't led by the large companies, but I did see a pretty good move in financials. So where does that leave us? Where does that leave me, I should say? I'm a negative 1/2. I want to go to -1, but I did see a pretty good surge in the financials today. Maybe it plateaus and continues. I am definitely at least a 0 on the week outlook. Why am I a -1, folks? My top-down approach is very similar to Mavericks, except I take into consideration where price lies in overextension and underextension, pullbacks, rallies, stuff, things of that nature. This is a negative score for me because it's too far away from its moving averages is extended. When it pulls back, I go actually more bullish on my top-down approach. However, I am not going to ignore this beautiful pattern in the longer term that it is above this area. If this continues sideways, even -1 pulls back to this area, I got to have the hammer down because that just shows long-term strength. Now, that's not how I feel. That's not how I feel at all, but that's what I chart, and that's what I have to trade, at least until that changes. All right, so let's jump into the potential trades ring. There wasn't a lot. I did find Fang. It was on a sideways list from, a few weeks ago. It's back on the sideways list. All of my sideways stuff that has been doing so well for weeks, not doing so well. They've all shot out. One of them they both broke out to the upper highs. So I've been, they kind of ruined. They're no longer feasible for sideways trade, but they were for a while. We'll see if that comes back. Let's get to DraftKings, ETNB. We got Fang, and then we got gold down there, and a Moderna, right? So let's start with DraftKings. This had its numbers. It beat pretty good. I'd be leery on going too aggressive now that it's passed because of the shadow that it put in today. Although I'm definitely bullish on this just because of the money that it's made and what it's saying and how it's doing and the sector it's in, it's fine. So will it pull back with the rest of the markets? Of course it will, but I don't need to shoot for 28. I just need to shoot for something maybe above 24, between 24 and 28, sideways to up. Just in case it wants to pull back first before it goes higher or wants to consolidate a little bit more. But it seems a lot more bullish than I think it is. And I do believe it's because of kind of the toppiness going on in the markets. So I'm a little leery to go shoot for 28 or 30 on this in the next month. But between 24, 28, sideways to up all day long, right? Let's get to ETNB. This one's a little bit more bullish. This one needs to consolidate or pull back. This is a watch more than it is a trigger. DraftKings could have been a trigger. It'd be fine to trade in the next day or so. This one I'm kind of waiting for along with the SPY. I know they're not related as far as sectors and stuff go, but the charts are similar. A little bit overextended. I would love to see this cool down and pull back. What I do like about this is a 16, 18, 20 butterfly spread for anybody that wants to play something sideways, almost a little counter, expecting a little bit of a retracement. That's kind of where I'm leaning, but I do need to see this pivot confirmed to the downside before I put my target of 18 on a butterfly. And yes, folks, it'll probably only be about a week and a half at most. Let's get into the sideways. I got sideways up here, but if you guys want to play this down, be my guest. Now, why do I say down? Obvious. Got a crossover here. I've got the 50-day moving average above the price action. It is now just barely back above that 20-day moving average, but it's descending. It's showing a little bit more weakness. Yes, sure, you can make the argument. Let's see if I can't jump into a different pin color here. There you go. You can make the argument that it is at this little stair step, which it absolutely is. So this could pivot right back out if you're going to be playing kind of a bullish flag pattern here. I'll draw a red line on top of that green to show you. So this could go either way. I have it sideways because what I thought was very interesting is these last two candles. So Monday, this thing gapped up to 135 and traded all the way back down to a little bit lower. Today, it gapped down and went all the way back up to pretty much flat. So we've got the push and pull done. It just depends on who's going to win, right? So if you believe in maybe a breakdown, you could play this thing sideways until it breaks below the 125 or sideways until it breaks above the 135. There you go. 125, 130, 135 butterfly spread shorter term. If you believe it's going to do this mess for a while, or you can wait for it to leave to the other side to play something as it breaks down, or if it's going to retrace and break out of that flag pattern I told you sideways or to the upside. So check that out, right? We got a sideways trade that could go up or down if you're patient with it and follow it. You're welcome. This is gold, GDX. I like this as a bearish rollover. It seems to be hanging in there, and it might be waiting on the exact same things we are when it comes to what the Fed might do with interest rates. I think that's next week, right? And what's going on in the economy, maybe what happens with Bitcoin. But it seems to been ready to roll over as of Friday. But the last 2 days, it's just parked. Kind of like, well, wait a minute. Let's just not roll over just yet. Now, it technically has not confirmed, I know it looks weird, has not confirmed the lower pivot because it needs to get below this level here, this candle's low of 31. So be patient with this if you want to be very, very patient, I should say, or a little bit more cautious. Wait for this thing to get below the 30 and play it as a breakdown. By the time that happens, it might be rolling over pretty fast. If it does, right? This is Moderna. It's been on our bear watch for some time. I just like it because it played another little volatile game. This was really inconveniencing for a lot of us that were into this sideways to bearish. But it looks like it's wanting to maybe bleed off of that 130. Credit spreads are good on this. It's just, once again, credit spreads are great, sideways to down. But when you get caught in this, it's very, very painful. And it just happens. Just understand that it happens. If it's the week that it happens to expire, ouch, that hurts. But more often than not, this thing does like to just kind of bleed lower as it moves sideways. So 130, below that, maybe target it down to the 120 mark if you want to get a little bit more directional with it. That's all I've got. Not a whole lot. These have been some strange markets. Overextension is something I really like to anticipate and watch, but it is difficult to trade. Some of the bears that have been working out for us, that have been working out for a long, long time, the last 3 days, folks, pull up some charts. John Deere, Caterpillar, Mosaic, 3M, these beautiful bears that have been great the last 3 days just popped up. So I don't know if it's a last ditch effort thing or if it's just something that it's just that tide is raising a couple of these boats or some bottom fishing going out there. So there it is. Rising tide appears to be raising all boats, at least the mid caps, and today especially the financial sectors. So it's kind of moved away from the large stuff, the large tech, the big AI stuff that we've been seeing. Those have gotten quiet. We'll see if that continues or if they're just taking a break before they move higher. Cryptocurrencies are under pressure from the SEC, specifically the U.S. It's not like this is a global thing that everybody's worried about. It's the SEC, it's specifically the U.S. that's looking into it, and that's why I think it's kind of crypto shrugged it off. We'll see if that gets any dirtier or uglier. We'll see. It'll be fun, right? Services PMI was flattening. Factory orders are also lower, so we're seeing an economy at least plateauing in some aspects. And we are light for the rest of the week. I don't think we're going to see too much until we get into next week, which will be a Fed week, I believe. We'll talk about it. Go ahead and check your earnings. Make sure that you haven't missed anything. Always triple check and before you make your trades. And thanks for joining me, folks. We'll talk to you next time. Bye, everyone.